Be bold, be brief, be seated. I can generally get 2 out of 3. When I look back on history, and I look at after the Civil War, you could say that perhaps at that time we were living in the land of Lincoln. Now we appear to be living in the land of Lenin, and I don't like it. When I took the officer oath in 1977 to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic, little did I realize how near and how close the enemies domestic really were. Confiscating your guns is not about guns, it's about power. They will tell you, well, confiscation has never been tried before. Not true, it was tried once before. And from Lexington and Concord, the shot was heard round the world. As patriots, we are known to be patient and have a very long fuse. But we also know at the very end of that long fuse is one big-ass bomb. But we really don't want that to go off. Despite what you hear from the mainstream media, this is not a partisan issue. Of tyranny affects all of us regardless of party affiliation. So what I really want to tell you about is, you may have heard of a former Marine name of Lieutenant Colonel Ollie North, president of the NRA. Well, he's coming to town on Saturday, April 6th to do a fundraising dinner in McMinnville. It'll be dinner under the wing of the Spruce Goose. My wife's been handing out flyers for oh, there she is, my gorgeous and super intelligent wife. She still has some flyers left. Said Ollie North is the keynote speaker at this fundraising event. We really would like to see you there. And so be sure and see her. She'll give you everything she'll give you a flyer. And as to what you can do, let me add something to a challenge for you. September 17th by federal law, which by the way is probably unconstitutional, but September 17th is Constitution Day, and schools are required to put on a Constitution program by federal law. So my challenge to you is to get involved with the schools this spring and over the summer and get your nose under the tent and have a program presented that you're going to deal with and set up to teach these kids the real Constitution. Thank you.
Wonderful. I have one more speaker coming up here in just a moment. Before she comes up, I would just like to say thank you. I've seen a lot of industry partners here. We asked a lot of Oregon companies to help us set this up, and a lot of them did. So thank you to everyone. We see people from Noveski, people from SIG Optics, Weapon Outfitters from Washington came down here. We just met some people who drove up 17 hours from California. So thank you to everyone for coming out here today. This has been fantastic. My next speaker is Miss Maggie Rose over here. She's going to come with some wonderful words for you guys.
You're not going anywhere. Get back over there. I can still be a first sergeant when I'm out of uniform, right? I want to thank Amanda and Radian for what they have done, and also Novinsky, which is from Josephine County, Grants Pass, Oregon. They're our sponsors. It was awesome when I heard about this a few weeks ago, and I got up on my website and I asked Amanda to give me all the information, and did she ever? And so we had the bus list up there, the times, pickups, everything. www.theconcord, like the Battle of Concord in Lexington, theconcordshow.com. And I'm here because of my husband, retired Captain, U.S. Army, and Revolution Radio. We just think what they're doing here is awesome. What we want to do is say thank you from Revolution Radio. I'd have one for the guys back there. black tip, but I'll have to give you something later. There you go. She's truly a patriot, isn't she? And a beautiful one at that. So, I'm known as Maggie Rose, but I'm going to come out of the closet. Some of you do know. My real name is Donice, like do nice, D-O-N-I-C-E. And I was given that name 63 years ago when my mother found out she was expecting me. And she was down in Hollywood as a stand-in for Natalie Wood. My uncle is Hugh O'Brien, who played Wyatt Earp on TV in the 50s and 60s. Marine Corps, I think he was, Semper Fi for those of you Marines. Okay? So I have Marine Corps blood in my veins. Both my grandfathers, one flew with Pappy Boynton, you know him as Dutch Yeager, and my other grandfather was Army World War I intelligence and World War II. My fathers were both Army and Marine Corps. My husband and I were Army. My father-in-law's Air Force. So a big to everybody out there who served, men and women, thank you for your service. God bless you all, and for those of you that were in Vietnam, welcome home. We can't say that enough. And for our brothers and sisters, Iraq, Afghanistan, welcome home, and God bless you all for your service. My girlfriend, who is right now taking care of an Air Force friend of ours who just came out of surgery, she told me about this book by Wayne LaPierre, Guns, Crime, and Freedom. And she started doing research out of this book and found out the first school shooting in America was 1927. She went through the list and she stopped around 1980 and she kept on going. One of the things I would like to do is I would also like to thank 3% of Oregon and those of you that have come from out of state. 3% stood with me both in Grants Pass, Oregon during the Sugar Pine Mine and also in Mauer, where I was with Lavoy Finnegan 4 or 5 days before he was assassinated. Okay? So rest for Lavoy. Janet Finnegan was in Douglas County a few weeks ago. They're showing the movie Dead Man Talking. She and Mike with Citizens for Central Government are coming up with part 2 and part 3 of those movies. And they're crossing the country. We also want to thank Tom McCurgan. Both he and Rob Taylor are with the sanctuaryordinance.com. The Second Amendment sanctuaryordinance.com is where you can go to find out about what they're trying to do with our Second Amendments here in Oregon. And we want to just thank both Rob Taylor. We want to thank Chris Brumbles. He's with the Oregon Firearms Federation, as well as OregonPushback.com. They're here today over on the right-hand side. They've got some things that you guys can sign. We also have www.defendthesecondamendment.org. When I entered the military in 1974, I was green, and I mean green in every way. I was wet behind the ears. I had not been taught my Constitution. When I graduated high school in 74, I had no idea what the Constitution meant. The closest I knew about civic government was they were starting this thing called Model UN in the public schools. I had no idea what a monster that would become later on. I have 2 relatives that went to school and became teachers. One taught at a junior college, the other one taught and is teaching right now middle school. I'm now, by those relatives, my blood relatives, being called a Trumpanzee, a racist like Hitler. They are now putting me down for the 35 plus years that I served in boots. And they've been basically saying, you gotta play along to get along. And I say, heck no.
Hell no!
Heck no! For those of you out there, my family, blood relatives, and close friends, you're still my blood, you're still my family and friends, but you know what? I will never, never put down what I believe in. When I signed that contract for the Constitution to defend it, I had no idea that I myself was coming under the UCMJ. I didn't get to come under the Constitution, but I defend the constitutional rights of those. And for those of you that apologize to me and say, but I didn't serve, oh yes you did. Standing here today, you're serving, whether you know it or not. Don't tell me that you didn't serve and apologize because you didn't put on boots or go put yourself in the line of fire. You're in the line of fire right now, right? Okay? So, and those women that are saying, oh, I was just a housewife. No, you're household engineers. Right? The money, the finances, all the rest of it. So don't apologize. I have a thing on my car that says, well-behaved women never make history. I would like to change that and say, well-behaved Americans are making history. My friend wrote this from the Founding Fathers. She's down in Roseburg, Oregon. She's a disabled veteran, U.S. Army, 1969 to 1971. She paved the grounds just before I went in. She said, quote, they only intended for the Second Amendment to apply to a militia, unarmed citizenry. That's us. To prevent tyranny, which reflects the Second Amendment's specific reference to the right of the people. The fact that the rights of the people appears in the 4th, 9th, and the 10th Amendments. Remember the Boston Massacre. Unarmed citizens were gunned down in the streets of Boston in 1770. The Boston Massacre was a fuse that lit the powder keg of debate over the right of the people to be armed. Let's move to the 20th century when unarmed students at Kent State University were gunned down during a demonstration. Do you get the picture? I remember Kent State. Do you all remember Kent State? The confiscation of arms focused the attention of our founding fathers on the threats posed by a standing army that was quartered among the people. George Mason, co-author of the Second Amendment, said, quote, a well-regulated militia composed of armed citizens is necessary to protect our ancient laws and liberty from the standing army, unquote. The anti-gun lobby devotes energy to the definition of, quote, militia, unquote, as it appears in Mason's writings. However, Mason made a very clear distinction between a, quote, standing army, unquote, such as a National Guard and or a militia composed of private citizens. The anti-gunners nevertheless claim the militia refers to a National Guard, not to the citizenry at large. To eliminate any doubt, however, when he said, to disarm the peoples, the best and most effective way is to enslave them. Thomas Jefferson, Samuel Adams, George Mason, Patrick Henry, the militia's rights. Whenever the government in any form becomes destruction, it is the right of the people, that's us, to alter it or to abolish it. I'm going to end with a little story. In 1974, I was on my way to Vietnam. I was going over there as a combat medic to bring home our soldiers, both living, injured, and those in body bags. And I was also going over there to bring home the Amerasian children. At the last minute at Travis Air Force Base, I was pulled off that plane and put on a special mission with about 300 men, many who had done 2 or 3 tours in Nam. 5 of us women. Obviously, we weren't going to Nam now. We found ourselves landing in Korea. I was in Korea when Vietnam fell, and they brought a lot of the pain and suffering through the 121 evacuation hospital. I remember walking down the street one day with my friend Kim Se-won. He was a very famous guitar singer. His father was a TV movie star in Korea. And we're walking down the street, and this is where I found out what dictatorship is all about. We're walking along talking. He's a very famous guitar player. He plays a lot of American songs in Myeongdong. And all of a sudden, he wasn't beside me anymore. I turned around, and he was in a police box. Some of the police officers had yanked him into their police station on the corner, and he was in a chair, and he was having his hair shaved off because it was too long. That's when I learned a little bit about the country I was living in, dictatorship. When I was on the base, I was safe. When I walked off the base, I was living under martial law and having to go by the dictates. I was not allowed to wear pants. I could only wear skirts, dresses, or a pantsuit that matched. I started to meet the university students in 1975 from Myeongdong, from Seoul University, from Ewha Women's University. And they started telling me what dictatorship was like in their country. This very progressive Western country, right? Folks, I have family members now in England that are telling me what's happening under socialism and how they try to soft pedal these words. We are not going to allow them to take away our guns. Our guns It doesn't matter what kind they are. They are our best defense against a tyrannical government or a dictatorship. So for those of you that have listened to the Concord Show on Revolution Radio, I thank you. Those of you who haven't, there are so many alternative medias out there that you need to, as the one gentleman said, don't just go ahead and say, yeah, I got your email and send it forward. Make a comment, say something. I just had Facebook take down something that I posted because my heart was breaking the other day because I accidentally watched live what happened in New Zealand. I saw the whole thing, including the woman in the black being gunned down in the street and his shooting her in the back of the head. I saw that. The closest I ever came to death was patients dying in my arms in the ER or on the side of the road. I had never seen anybody murdered before. And I'm glad they're taking it down. We don't need our children, young people to see that, but we need our children, young people to realize that if we don't do something now, my great-grandchildren will not have even the freedoms that we have now. God bless you all and thank you.